Welcome to the third season of Between the Lines, the podcast that brings you interviews with some of Canada's lesser-known authors and writers. In this season, we will be exploring the works of these unknown but talented poets from various locations across this great country. From the breathtaking landscapes of the far north to the bustling downtown city streets, these writers have captured the essence of Canada in their words. In each episode, we will delve into the lives and careers of these fascinating individuals, learning about their inspirations, challenges, and their triumphs. I'm your host, Randy Lacey. Please join me as I present to you these hidden gems of Canadian literature and uncover some of the stories between the lines.
Hello, and welcome to Between the Lines. On today's show, I will be speaking with Port Elgin's very own Kerri Merriam. Hello, Kerri, and welcome to Between the Lines.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, it is my pleasure, and I say that to everybody, but it really is my pleasure to do this for writers and authors and poets. And, you know, if I was sure I could get a musician in here, I would too.
Yeah.
Well, because you know what? You will not find a song without a poem, right? For the most
right.
part. Before we get right into the nitty gritty of the interview, I wonder if you'd mind giving our listening audience a brief rundown on who Kerri is and what she's about.
Sure, I'll try. Well, I'm from Port Elgin, which is in Ontario. I live right along Lake Huron, so we like to go to the beach a lot. Big, huge tourist town here in the summer. I am married. I have 3 kids, 2 teenage boys, and a little girl who is 8. I'm a writer. It's the only thing I ever really wanted to do, the only thing I ever really cared about in school. So... yeah, but I like photography. I kind of dabble in that a little bit. Pretty much a lot of creative things. I like music, but I can't play anything.
Anything else, or are you...
About it, I guess.
All right, so she was not shy in telling me how old she is, but she doesn't look old enough to have kids as old as she says they are. That's all I have to say.
My oldest is 16, so...
yeah. And normally, at this juncture, I would jump right into what I call question period, but because season 3 is about Canadian poets and their poetry, instead of going straight to question period, we're going to give you an opportunity to start us off by reading a poem. Do you have one ready?
Yeah, it's, I have one here I wanted to share. It's part of a book that I self-published.
Okay.
It's some poems and also some of my photography. I like this one because I actually wrote this for my daughter. She was the inspiration of it. So
wonderful.
It's called Through a Child's Eyes. I'm just gonna clear my throat. Okay, Through a Child's Eyes. To see the world through a child's eyes, look up and see cotton candy skies. Get excited about a star-shaped lunch, and autumn leaves underfoot with their satisfying crunch. You will see magic all around, something remarkable in every sound. Boring is certainly not allowed. Look, it's a dragon, not a cloud. They live in the moment, in no hurry, not rushing around in an adult flurry. It is something to admire, perhaps also to aspire, to imitate, to make a goal. Once in a while to lose control. Not worry about getting from A to B, to open our eyes and really see. Magic is all around us, everything has beauty, and making friends can be as simple as, want to play with me? We may be older, but from them can learn, and have some of our innocence return. So let us more often give it a try, to see the world through a child's eyes. And that's the end of that one.
That is wonderful. I can relate to it 100%. I hear children going by my front door on their way to school every day, and the innocence of children, right?
Yeah, it actually came about with because my daughter and I were walking, and she was looking at the sky, and she's like, "Do you know that the clouds can tell stories?"
Oh,
And she
wonderful.
was telling me all the things about the different dragons that the clouds were. It was really cool. She's really creative.
Sounds like, yeah, I was just gonna say, sounds like you've got a writer there.
Yeah, she's actually trying to write a story right now. She's been showing me, so
Oh,
yeah.
wonderful. That is cool. Thank you
She's
for
only
sharing
8,
that.
so she's gonna give me a run for my money.
Yeah, but you've got some experience on her, so,
Yeah,
and you can give her the tips she needs to publish.
yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. That was wonderful. We're going to go right into question period now. And so the very first question, which is always a good place to start, by the way, who introduced you to poetry and with what?
My mother actually introduced me to poetry. Before we even took it in school or anything, she had an old hardcover book that was actually a discarded poetry textbook from a high school. I think she picked it up at like a used bookstore, but it was just full of poems, and she really liked it. We both really liked this one. The same poem was called The Daffodils by William Wordsworth,
Okay.
and it was just, we really liked it. I liked the way it rhymed and the lyric of it. So that was really my first like look at poetry, and yeah.
It set you on your journey.
Yeah, I think so. That's
And
the earliest thing I can remember anyways.
reading, do you remember the first poem you ever wrote or when it was, or
Um,
do you still have it?
I think I do somewhere. I the earliest poem I think I wrote was called Rain, I think. It was about the weather, like rain and the wind, and
Okay.
it's probably not very good.
Well,
But
which,
I still write the same sort, like I write about nature a lot still, so
okay.
yeah.
Question number 2. Do you have a preferred style of poetry? I.e. sonnet, limerick, haiku, etc.?
Um, I really like rhyming poetry, and it doesn't seem to be in fashion anymore, they say, but most of the poetry I write and the ones that I enjoy most are usually rhyming. I do have some that don't rhyme at all, but it's just my preference, I think. I like the rhyming ones, and the lyric of it and the rhythm, the flow of them, and trying to find the right word. I think it pushes me a little creatively.
I love rhyming.
Yes,
It seems it's what comes more natural to me than anything else.
me
You
too.
feel this, yeah, you too, eh?
Yeah.
So you could be thinking of something, walking down the street and think of something, and then you're automatically trying to rhyme it, right?
Yeah, just a random line, and then you're like, yeah, it
Oh,
works like that.
that's the funnest thing to
Mhm.
do, though. But why do you think it's fallen out of quote unquote favor today?
I don't really know. It confuses me. I'm like, why don't more people like this rhyming poetry? I like it so much better. Because poetry that doesn't rhyme, to me, it sounds like prose. Like it sounds more like I've written part of a story.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's not true. There's lots of different kinds of poetry, but poetry to me always rhymed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You listen to most songs today and they rhyme.
Yeah.
Take away
A
the
lot.
music and you have a poem.
Yes. Yeah, I actually wrote a poem once, I think it was a year or two ago, and I put it on my Facebook just for fun to share with people. And my one friend said, I didn't know Kerri was a rapper. He said it sounded like a rap song. So I thought that was funny because,
That
yeah,
is.
writing poetry even made me appreciate rap a little. And I'm not a huge rap fan, but you can respect it.
And appreciate the talent that goes into it.
Yes, yeah.
Because you know what? I couldn't write a rap song,
No, I don't think I could.
but look at them, right? And
Mhm.
so there's a talent there, and I think, for the non-rhyming poets, that's a talent. For us rhymers, that's a talent. And, you know, I believe that anybody can write a poem. I've always believed that. I just think that a lot of people don't want to try because if they can write a poem, that means they're this or that, or, you know, but it's just a beautiful way of expressing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the better you can rhyme, the better.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I try.
Well, you know what? Your rhyming scheme in that poem was good.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Who is your favorite poet and why?
My favorite poet would have to be Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, are
I'm
you a
bouncing with
fan?
joy, people.
It's funny though, because I'm usually a big chicken when it comes to scary things. But I've always liked him and his writing, and I've always been intrigued by him, and very often he rhymes in his poems, so maybe that's a bit why.
Yep. Do you have a favorite poem?
Oh, I do like The Raven, even though it seems like I'm just naming the biggest hit, but Annabelle Lee, I like that one too. I really like that one.
Yes. I used to have, and because I'm visually impaired, I don't have the physical book anymore, but it was called The Unknown Poe.
Oh.
And there's a lot of, you know, things about Poe and other poems that weren't included in any of his collections or works.
Oh.
And I gave that away, but that's fine. Yes, Poe is one of my favorites. And, every year I do a Google search and for Poe related contests.
Oh yeah. I've entered one of those recently.
There's not a lot of them though.
I've only ever found two, and one of them isn't happening anymore.
Yeah,
So,
for the last like 6 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
I
only
was
had one
thinking about
recently.
starting a Canadian one.
That would be fun.
It would
My
be.
sister would also love that. She loves that kind of writing. Of a writer family.
Are you aware that there have been some Poe-esque songs or so there's a group called the Alan Parsons Project. Have you ever heard of them?
No, I haven't.
They're from the 70s predominantly, but and they go through the 80s and into the 90s, whatever. But they've got one album in particular called Tales of Mystery and Imagination, and it's all Poe writing set to music.
Oh, that's fun. That would be really.
I would recommend that you get it, and they do The Raven wonderfully.
Oh, good. Yeah. That was it's probably my first poem of his that I ever heard, which is probably why it stuck with me as well.
Very well. Yeah, no, it very well could be for a lot of people though. There's just something about the way he wrote and, his imagery was incredible.
Yeah, I've always thought he was really compelling, really interesting character.
Somebody should make a movie about him. Oh, I think they have. Do you have another poem you would like to read for us?
Yeah. Okay, here it is. This one's also from the same book as the first one. Okay. There's no real theme to the book, it's just random poems. Yeah, this one is based on, I'm kind of writing about Ireland, which I'm a huge fan of, and I really love it there.
Have you been?
Yes, just twice. I wanted to go again this year, but it's not in the cards.
Just twice. I haven't.
Yeah.
It's a bucket list for me.
Oh, okay. This one is called Where My Heart Lies. My soul longs for hills of green, the likes of which I've not since seen. I want to view the mountains high, reaching out to a clear blue sky. To feel the ocean air on my face, content in the knowledge that this is my place. The wind whipping through my hair, going its own way without a care. Even the rain, when coming down, cannot turn my smile to frown. I inhale deeply and drink it in, this land that made me happy again. It breathed life back into me, when darkness was all that I could see. My life I thought was surely over, was found again amongst the clover. The memories I will always keep, and revisit them when I'm fast asleep. And though we were forced to say our goodbyes, some day I will return to Where My Heart Lies. And that's the end of that one.
Like I said, it's a bucket list for me to go to Ireland. And, I think if I ever did make it there, I believe that it would open up a whole new world of writing for me. It seems like being there has touched your soul. I felt you there as you read it.
That's good. That's good to know.
Well, then that's part of why we're doing this is, so other people can, understand the mind of a poet as well. So you've been there twice, you said.
I have, yeah. It's really special. I love it
there.
I'd move there tomorrow if my family was on board.
Do you have Irish in your blood or?
I do have a little. It's on my dad's side, but I don't know exactly how much. I'm not half Irish or anything. But...
So what was the allure? How did you know that you?
Since I was a child, I always wanted to go to Ireland.
And not Scotland? Or Wales?
Well, I did, I always interested in all of them, like England, Ireland, Scotland, and I actually did go to Scotland as well. But, Ireland was just, I don't know, something was wanting to pull me there, and it still does. There's tons of places in the world I want to see and travel to. I love traveling. But I always want to go back there. I just want to go back to Ireland. I'm good.
What or who is your muse?
A muse. I don't know if it's any one thing. Sometimes it is people in my life, like the poem that I wrote for my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it can just be a conversation overheard in a coffee shop or something I see out in nature that I find interesting or beautiful. Yeah, so sometimes people, sometimes things, sometimes eavesdropping.
Well, there are people who use the same muse over and over for their inspiration.
Yeah.
And
not one.
Hmm?
No, sorry. I was just, there's not one particular thing or person.
Yeah, you're like me. Especially being visually impaired, I'm limited as to what I can see to inspire me.
Right.
But there's no shortage of what I can hear that inspires me.
Mm-hmm.
So I see with my ears, and yes. I think I was going to write a title of my book was going to be "If You Could See What I Hear."
Okay, that's an interesting title,
isn't it? Though, eh? Especially for a visually impaired person,
right?
And anyway, the crazy things we come up with. So, what inspired you for your book titles or your poem titles?
Titles? I don't know. I try and tie them into the poem. I like how, in the Where My Heart Lies one, the line is usually towards the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I seem to like to do that a lot in my poems. I think, both the ones that I read today had the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoy thinking of titles. And sometimes it is hard, but I like finding titles.
It's
almost like a first line, I guess, in a story.
Well, it could be what inspires the story. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you use a physical journal, writing journal, notebook, or are you typically your phone or tablet or computer?
I used to write everything out longhand, but it just got too much and my hand would get sore. So I just use my notes app on my phone.
Okay.
I write almost everything in there. So people just think I'm playing on my phone. I'm actually writing, so.
Stop playing on your phone.
Yeah.
Pay attention to me. Oh, I'm writing everything you're saying.
Yeah, my sister and I said that the other day. She's like, I thought we were writing together. You're just playing on your phone. I'm writing. So I showed it to her.
That's funny. Yeah, we can get into trouble for things like that, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
On my computer, I've got a writing journal per se,
mm-hmm.
and I've got it broken down into different sections and, plots or, character traits or whatever like that. But I've got 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 pages exclusively for book titles and poem titles.
That's nice.
I'm always writing down ideas for titles, and
I do have a few of my notes. Yeah, they're just like one lines, like
Mhm.
a line or a title or even a character name. Like I thought this would be a cool name for a character. So I jot that all down, and sometimes it ends up to be something, and sometimes it just sits there.
yeah. But if you don't write it down, you lose it.
Yeah,
And so yeah,
learn that.
it's a hard way probably.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's so yeah. Like I said in my journal, I've got like titles and I've got characters and character traits, and
Mhm.
not that I write. I'm only recently started writing short stories and other things, but
Yeah.
predominantly for 40 years I was a poet, or I like to call myself a poet.
Yeah.
Other people might say something different, but
All
um,
subjective.
well, true enough, right? Um, when you first started writing poetry, were you the show it to everybody kind of person, or did you keep it to yourself?
I think I was more of a show it to everybody
Okay.
because I was so enthusiastic about it. I was passionate about writing. I like, look what I made. Do you like it? And I liked people's admiration, I guess, when they would give me compliments on it. And so I wanted to show it to everybody. And I still struggle with it because if I like something that I've written, I want to show someone and say, isn't this kind of cool? Is it good? But I don't, I hold on to it a bit longer now, especially if it's really personal. I kind of, I try and see if I can make it any better, polish it up, or if it is too personal, then I kind of just hide it away to myself.
No, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Um, so would you say that okay, I'll just ask the question, who do you write for? Do you write for yourself or do you write for other people, or is it
Mainly my,
therapeutical for you, or?
yeah, sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's just for me, and other times it's always for me because I have to like it. But yeah, but I love it when someone else enjoys something that I have written. So I do like to share them. And hopefully
Um,
people like them.
but it is hard for you to share those personal, I
Yeah,
wrote this as a form of therapy for myself kind of thing, right?
yes. Like, Where My Heart Lies has a bit of personal story in it too, so that it's a bit emotional, but I feel comfortable enough sharing it.
Okay, but would you agree or disagree with the following statement then, that every poet puts a little bit of themselves in everything they write?
I think so. Well, for me, definitely.
Yeah.
Whether it's my poems or just my other writing that I do, even when I don't really realize it subconsciously, I think there's me in there.
So have you ever written something that you thought had nothing really to do with you, and then you go back and you read it and you go, oh my goodness, that's kind of personal?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
So how do you decide what you put in your books then?
How do I decide?
Yeah. Do you just pick away,
I,
or do you
yeah,
put a conscious thought into everything that's going into your book?
not everything, I don't think. I just, whatever works best for the story.
Okay.
But yeah, there's been time and um character traits, and I'll say to people like, I think I might have an issue because I keep writing characters that have this issue.
Oh no, self-analysis time. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'll be my own therapist.
Would you prefer to be traditionally published? Well,
I think
first of
that
all, you're not traditionally published, are you?
no, I've only been well, I guess it would be called traditionally published, but by like indie publishers, like contests and
Okay.
submitting to their indie things,
Right.
but not by a big publisher or anything like that. So I'm mostly self-published, and part of me, I think, everyone thinks, oh, if you're traditionally published, you're more of a real author.
Legitimate.
Which I don't like that, but that is how some people think. So it'd be nice to be able to say that, oh, look, I'm traditionally published. But it's not a huge goal for me. I like being self-published. I like having the control over my stuff and what I want to say and when I want to release it. And like, even the self-published books that I have, even my covers are mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're my photographs that I've taken and I have control over that. And I like that. So I like self-publishing.
The whole self-publishing aspect of it, though, just the way the world is going right now is becoming more accessible and being more accepted, I think. Of course, the traditional publishers are going, yeah, well, you're taking money out of our pockets. But, I think that would be their only concern, because, as I said, as I've said in the past, I think that there have been things that traditional publishers are saying, oh, you should be reading this. This is what you should be reading. And I read that and I'm going, this is garbage. And then I read something from somebody in one of my writing groups and I'm going, that should be published by that and not that.
Yeah, I agree.
And so that's basically why I started my own writing group on Facebook. But, I'm tired of being told what I have to read.
Yeah.
And so it's important to me to give people like you and even myself, that exposure, with regards to, well, here's this person and this is what they're writing and people are hearing it and they're going, hey, that's pretty cool. That's pretty good. And that's why I'm doing season 3 this way. And so, people are responding to it. And, I think, but where am I going with this? Oh yeah. Self-publishing is being more accepted by more people.
Yeah, I think.
And
there's still a little bit of, like, at least with people I know, they still think it would be cool to get that big deal, the big book deal, but like it'd be nice, but it's becoming more legitimized, I guess.
So I think those people that you should, get traditionally published.
Yeah.
I think they're misguided because there is no big book deals for poets.
No, definitely not poets. I don't know why.
You might get a good book deal after you're dead.
Yeah, you'll be famous.
Yeah, it's the last thing I need. Anyway, of writing, publishing, or marketing, which do you struggle with the most?
Definitely marketing.
Why?
I am very shy and quiet, and I don't like approaching people, and I feel like I'm bothering people, and they're like, I'm some nobody, why do they want me to read what I've written? So I struggle with that, and just self-confidence and speaking up.
So until I started doing this podcast, I'd never heard the term imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that's part of you, of who you are? Do you suffer from imposter syndrome?
Yeah, probably quite largely.
Why?
I just never feeling quite good enough, I guess. Like,
for who? If you write for you, then why would this be a concern?
Well, eventually I hope that people will read some that I've written.
Well,
I don't know why. It's just because when I read my own stuff, I'm like, that's good, I like it. But then I'm like, I'm not a very good writer. What am I doing?
Well,
I'm not super educated and I'm not great with grammar.
Oh, wait a sec. You're supposed to know grammar and stuff.
A little bit. I'm not very good. My sister says I use way too many commas, which is true.
Just after I lost my vision, I took a course through the Hadley School for the Blind down in Illinois.
hmm
And the course I took was Elements of Poetry. And I had a wonderful instructor. And one day she says, okay, here's your assignment. Go back and take one of your old poems and rewrite it or what was the other term? Edit it.
hmm
And it was up until that point, I'd never once considered editing a poem.
hmm
And I go, you can edit poetry? Because I always believed that the way it was written was the way that it was meant to be.
Okay.
But so I took a longer poem and I condensed it and edited it. I hate that word. And then did what I was supposed to do to it and realized that, oh, I guess you are supposed to. And again, I'm not very well educated. I dropped out of high school 5 times. I eventually went back to get it. But, you know, I didn't know that you were supposed to edit poetry.
hmm
And, you know, well, now that I'm blind, I do my best and it still comes out wrong. But I have fun trying it, right? But I think part of the problem, though, is that not a lot of people know how to read poetry either.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
I mean, as writers of it, we know how it's supposed to sound, how you're supposed to, you know, the breaks and, you know, the
Yeah.
intonations and stuff like that. But those that, you know, don't, they struggle with reading it correctly for them to make sense. And I think maybe that's where it's lost. Literally lost in translation.
Right? Yeah.
So during my interviews, I give my guests 7 questions, which you've wonderfully answered. But there's an 8th mysterious question that nobody knows about.
Okay.
Oh, it's, you know, and most people, you know, oh, no.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal, so to speak. But so here's the question. What would you like to say to the person who set you on your poetry writing journey if they were listening right now?
Just thank you, for believing that I could do it when I've said to myself that I wasn't a poet. I always wrote stories. It was primarily stories and I tried to write books. But I was like, I'm not a poet. I'm not good at poetry. And they said, well, why? Why you say you're not good? You can do it. And they just encouraged me and believed in me. And then I just started to try it. And I
And
ended up really liking it.
is that your preferred style of writing now, or?
I like both, I think. I still like I'm working on another book right now that is just like a novel. But yeah, I like poems. I can do them relatively quick usually, and they don't take the same amount of time commitment a lot of the time that my books do. Like I think it took me about 4 years or so to write my very first book.
Okay.
As well, because I had my daughter as well, so that set me back a little. I was busy with her.
That, you know, children tend to do.
Yeah.
What is your longest poem? Like pages, words?
I don't actually know. It would probably be like 3 pages, maybe,
Okay.
typed out. I'm gonna guess that. I haven't published my longest one. It's one I haven't published, so.
Okay. In 2015, I set out to write a poem a day for the year,
hmm
and which was a daunting task,
hmm
but well worth trying. And from that year, I ended up with 371 poems.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And from them, I published 4 books. And so Resolutions Book 2, Resolutions Book 3. And the reason for the title is because that project was born out of a New Year's resolution to try and write a poem a day for a year.
Okay.
But the fourth book is actually called Leftovers and New Concoctions because from those three books that were published, there were some that were way too short, some that were way too long, and there wasn't enough of them, so I took some from the next year and put them in as well. But there was one, and it's basically my life story put into poetry, and it's like 9 pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, I love the long poem. I love what are they called? Epics.
Yes.
Right. So like the Rime of the Ancient Mariner was one. And I mean, the rest slipped my mind right now. That's the one that's always on my mind. But those epics are just, Beowulf is another one, is another epic poem, right? And it is a poem, but it's read like a story. So yeah, the longer poems, and there are now, I don't know, contests to write the short poem, like 4 lines or whatever.
Yeah, I think my shortest poem is around 4 lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been getting into a habit of the 5 stanza poem. I don't know why. Do you have a preferred length or?
No. Like I said, I've had some poems that are like 4 lines, and then I've had much longer, and some have like 2 lines in a stanza, and the other have like 4 or 5. It's not really consistent.
So do you sit down and just write it all at once, or do you go back to it and add to it, or?
Sometimes I can write it all at once, but I often go back and I add things, or I switch lines around to make it feel a bit better. But,
right. There have been days where I wake up in the morning, I come to my computer and I sit down and it's like, and I write, and then it stops but it's not done.
Yeah.
And I go, well, I'm not going to, and for me personally, I think to try and contrive an ending is wrong. So I will just set it aside and I will come back to it to see if the inspiration is there to finish it. If not,
I do that.
You do that a lot too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, my unfinished poetry file folder is about 120 strong.
Yeah.
Waiting for me to go back to. Let's see here. What advice would you give to a new writer about receiving negative criticism on their work?
It's hard to hear negative criticism.
Do you think there is any growth that can be had from it?
Yes. I think it's important to listen to it, as long as it's not outright rude and mean-spirited. But listen to criticism, be humble enough to realize that maybe you do need a bit of work on something. It doesn't mean that you're terrible. Some people will love what you do, some people will hate it. But yeah, you can learn from criticism, as long as I said it's not cruel.
Right. And by cruel, you mean that it's presented in such a way that it's just nasty, and it stops being criticism then.
Yeah, then it's not constructive at all. It's just
because I mean we're both in writing groups on Facebook, and I have seen so many times, people, I'm putting this poetry up, but I only want positive feedback.
Yeah.
Well, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I hate fluffiness. I really do. There's flowery poetry, and then there's life poetry.
Yeah.
What? Life is not flowery.
No, not all the time.
Not all the time. Going back to that other question, the 8th mysterious question, though, you have said what you'd say to them, but who is it?
Well, it was kind of a few people. I was thinking of my friend Kristen, who I actually thanked in my acknowledgments in the poetry book that I published.
Nice.
Because she was the one, she's like, why do you say you're not a poet? You can do it. Like, you write well. Like, and so she encouraged me, my husband as well, and he is not a poetry fan.
Okay.
He doesn't get it. But he encourages me even when he doesn't understand it.
That goes a long way, though, doesn't it?
And like you said too, like I have a high school teacher that really encouraged me. She asked me what my career plans were because she thought writing might be a good option. And she said she was going to mark me a little bit harder than the rest of the students because she could tell I was serious about it. Yeah, and my mom too for just introducing me to poetry. And yeah, my sister too was a big help because we're both writers. So
She
we
write
often,
poetry as well?
yep, we write a little bit of everything and we try and help each other and give advice or say what works or what might not, things like that. So yeah,
Maybe we
I have a
can
few people.
maybe we can get your sister on the show.
Yeah, that'd be good. I told her she should go on with
I could have interviewed both of you at the same time.
it.
We're going to go into the next section called shameless plugging, which is
Oh,
really why I do this is to give you and my other guests the opportunity to let the listeners know what you have on the market, where they can find it, where they can contact you, and all that sort of stuff. So we'll start with question number one. What books do you currently have available on the market, and where can people find them?
I have a novel, which is my first novel I ever self-published. It is called Where the Trees Know You, and it's actually it's a love story, but it's based partly in my hometown here in Ontario and partly in Ireland, which we go back to.
Okay. Sorry, I had to chuckle when you said it's a love story because I've got some really, really, really close friends and we do a lot of things together, which
Mhm.
involve watching videos or movies and stuff like that. And I always, at some point during the show, turn to them and I say, in the end, it's really a love story.
Yeah,
It could be an action movie, but it's a love story.
it
It,
is a love story. Sorry,
they're,
go ahead.
they all come back to being a love story
Yeah,
of some kind. So,
it is a love story, and I don't like to call it a romance novel because it's not like Harlequin-y, and I don't like if you Google romance novels, it's like that's not what I want my book to be called. Also, I just say love story.
fair enough. I actually did an interview for season 2, which is actually going to be released this Wednesday. And she's a romance novelist and
Yeah.
out of Calgary, and she's got like 23 romance novels.
Well, some are really great. I just when I go into any like romance novel group on Facebook or whatever, I don't feel like my book fits.
Right, right.
So that's the only reason I hesitate to call it a romance novel, even though technically that's probably what it would fall under genre-wise.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, that was my first book,
Mm-hmm.
and I also have this one little book here. Like it's just a collection of some of my poems and some of my photography. But I try and tie in a bit to the poem. Like they're
Okay.
related. Like if I have a winter poem and there's a nice winter photo with it, that kind of thing. So it's a nice little book, I thought.
I've often thought about incorporating imagery, whether it be hand drawn or, photography or whatever,
Yeah.
into my books with my poems as well. But it's just a lot of extra work for a blind guy.
It took a lot of work to make.
See?
Like I just self-published it on like Amazon Kindle Direct.
Right?
It was hard to get the formatting right and getting everything to fit where it's supposed to. Yeah, it was a challenge, but it worked out okay. But those are the only two I have out right now.
Are you aware that you can download free Kindle templates for books?
Oh yeah?
And you open it up and you just throw whatever you got right in there. It's not the Kindle Create, but it's just additional templates that go into that whole thing. And
really?
oh yeah. So you just Google Kindle templates.
Okay.
And I think they go through almost every trim size, but everything's all laid out in the proper formatting for you.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Pretty helpful.
I use it all the time, and let me tell you, It,
Okay.
it certainly helps this visually impaired person. Question number 2, so those are the only 2 books that you've got available.
Those, yeah, they're the only 2 that I have out, and they're on Amazon and my website too. It's just kerriannbuckton.com. Buckton is my married name.
Okay.
So,
There
yeah.
will be a transcript of this interview available, so you'll be able to click and go. Question number 2. Are you currently working on anything? And if so, how close to completion is it?
Yes. I'm working on a few things.
Okay. Aren't we all?
Yeah. Well, I always have poems that I'm working on. Some are just for fun, some are for like contests or submissions. I am working on a second novel, which is not a love story. It's a completely different story. It's almost like a family story, but it also has a bit of magic realism in there and a bit of fantasy. So it's different for me, but I really like it. And the first draft is finished.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
just having it looked at and edited a bit. So I probably have to rewrite quite a bit, but it's good. It's fairly well along. And I'm also trying to write a few children's books.
Oh, interesting.
One is written and I think finished, but I don't have an illustrator, so I'm still looking for that. But yeah, so I'm trying to write a few poems, my children's books. I was trying to write a song, but I know nothing about how to write a song or music. So for right now, it's just a poem that's in my notes.
I'm right there with you about not being musically talented.
Yeah, I love music, but I'm like, I don't know how to turn this into a song. But it feels like it's a song, so.
I hear that 100%. I hear the music in my head, but I can't translate it into anything. I've got a file folder in my computer that's called attempted lyrics.
Yeah.
That's really what they are.
Yeah, the same with mine.
If you had to choose one of your books or poems as a favorite, which one would it be?
Probably my first book, Where the Trees Know You. It's really personal for me. It's loosely based on myself. Like, it's a fiction novel, but it's loosely based on my own experiences and my first trip to Ireland. And so it's really close to me. So I cared a lot about that book, and it took a long time to write.
Do you have a favorite poem?
I don't know if I have one favorite.
It's like picking your favorite child, right?
Yeah, because I have poems that I've written for my children that I really like them. And some are a little sad because dealing with the fears and feeling like you're failing as a parent. And so they're very personal, but I like them at the same time. I think it's because it's quite raw and emotional, so I like that.
I personally, I think most of the people who have read my stuff actually like the fact that it's raw and personal. One, because it gives them an insight into me, and 2, because it allows them to look into their own lives and project maybe they're not letting out.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Where can people connect with you? Facebook, email, snail mail, TikTok, Instagram, and the list goes on and on and on. Stop the insanity.
Yeah, a lot of my social media is just personal pages, but I have an Instagram author page. It's just kerriannbuckton.author. And my website, there's an email on the website. It's just contact@kerriannbuckton.com.
Okay. Do you have an Amazon author page?
I do. Yeah, I'm on Amazon under Kerri Merriam Buckton because I use both of my last names as my author name.
So spell that last name then?
It's Buckton.
And anything else? Are you on TikTok? Or are you?
No, I'm told that I should be, but I haven't. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with making videos and stuff. So, yeah, I'm mainly on Instagram and well, I do have Facebook, but it's just a
Personal?
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a person I recently interviewed, actually for season 2. We got into this question. She goes, you know what? She goes, I'm actually hiring one of my son's tweener friends to do my TikTok stuff.
Oh, I could do that. Just
There you
make someone
go.
else do it for me.
There you go.
Like a ghost writer, but it's a ghost TikToker.
a ghost talk.
Yeah.
That's funny. Do you have one more poem for us?
Yeah, sure. This one is different than the ones I have read. It's a little bit spookier. I recently wrote it for submitting about stories about superstitions,
Okay.
and it had to be a little bit creepy. So
Well,
there was
how fitting that you would choose to read this one today, because this is being recorded on Halloween.
Halloween, yeah.
All right,
Yep.
the floor is
So,
yours. I'll be quiet.
so it's called Hold Your Breath. I hold my breath as I walk by, for fear the dead will hear and try to steal my life from inside me, snatch the very breath I breathe. Behind wrought iron gates, silence is deceiving, they lie in wait, supposedly sleeping, resting in peace, but they're really waiting on souls to feast. Lost spirits deeply scorned, the crow cries out, so you are warned. Hold it in, hold your breath, so you may not yet be claimed by death. And that's the end of that.
There's nothing spooky about that.
Well, I chose this superstition I heard of when I was a kid that if you drove or walked by a graveyard, you had to hold your breath, or else they'd steal your soul. Which
Okay, I've never
I
heard
don't
that.
believe in it, but it made like a cool little poem idea.
So it's like stepping on a crack in the sidewalk.
Yeah, make break your mother's back.
Yeah, or walking under a ladder, yeah, you know what? There's no end to those, is there?
Yeah.
There's no end. You should, start writing all these different ones down, and there you
You
go.
should have lots of poems.
Well, there you go, right? Oh, thanks for sharing that. I don't think it was scary, but then again, The Exorcist wasn't scary for me either. So.
Oh, wow. See, I'm a chicken with scary things, which is why it's funny that I love Edgar Allan Poe. Because he can get quite dark.
Oh, yeah. In closing, what would you tell anybody who might be too afraid to take the chance at being published? Whether traditional or even self.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, but just to try it anyways. Like nothing. It might be something good that happens or something bad that happens, but if you don't do it all, then nothing will happen.
There's a quote. I don't know who it's attributed to, but I've heard it a lot in the last couple of weeks, and even in some of these interviews. But 100% of the shots not taken are you'll never score. Or I probably messed that one up anyway. But you'll know.
It's more likely to regret something that you didn't do, a chance you didn't take, I should say.
Exactly. And just like this podcast, I took a chance.
Yeah.
And now I'm in
stepping out of my comfort zone to come on here today.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's been nice.
You did, and you did well.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, and I hope in the future that other people will hear this and say, hey, I want to interview you or her.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Wouldn't it though? But
yeah.
Kerri, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. Again, like you said, coming out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Do this. I appreciate it. I appreciate the poems that you shared, the time that you were willing to put into this. And it means a lot to me that you said yes to come on the show.
Glad I did. It was fun. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Between the Lines. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and were inspired to either start writing or to keep on writing. The best thing you can do to help support your favorite guest or guests is by purchasing one of their books. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes or guests, you can reach out to us by sending an email to randy.btlpodcast@gmail.com. Use comment or suggestion in the subject line. Visit my website,